It's time for Recipe of the Day. If you get frustrated by chicken breasts that dry out on the grill, I have got the recipe for you. These barbecue chicken breasts turn out tender and juicy every time. And that is because, if you know me, you know I am starting with a brine. When working with chicken breasts, the meat is so lean that it doesn't have a lot of fat or like juiciness inside to really keep everything moist. And so when you use a brine, you essentially soak the meat in salt water, and meat is better able to absorb salt water than regular water. And so it's able to take in extra juiciness. That's what's going on. So we start with a brine, and then we use a 2-temperature grilling process so that we're not drying out the meat over too high of heat. And we're adding some barbecue sauce, but like towards the end so that it stays nice and juicy and doesn't like dry on too much. So those are the keys to what we're going to do to make these delicious, not dry grilled chicken breasts. Okay, so we're starting with the brine. If you don't want to do the brine, you don't have to. It's optional. I just want you to know that we don't have to brine them for very long. 30 minutes actually does a great job. My best recommendation is more 45 to 60 minutes, but 30 minutes does do a good job on it. And even 15 minutes will make a difference. That more seasons the chicken really well and not really bringing in as much of the juiciness, but it does make a difference. So if you have any time at all, I do recommend that you brine them, ideally for 60 minutes. I don't recommend going much further than that. 2 hours is kind of my limit. Okay. So we're going to start by making the brine if you're doing it. And so it is 4.5 tablespoons of Morton's kosher salt dissolved in 4 cups of cold water. Now, if you have a different kind of kosher salt, if you have the diamond kosher salt, then it's 6 tablespoons because those crystals are a little bit bigger. And if you're using just a normal like table salt or fine sea salt, then it's 3 tablespoons. So you dissolve that salt in the cold water. And if you want to, you can add some seasonings or things to this. I don't find that it penetrates that much, but you know, just a big scoop of garlic powder can make a nice difference in there. That one is potent enough that it does seem to work. So you could do that. I like to add it after dissolving the salt in the water because the garlic powder makes the water cloudy and then you can't tell if the salt has fully dissolved. Now, I said to use cold water. Some people think you need warm water to dissolve the salt. You do not. And the reason that I'm using cold water is we have cold water. We're going to add our chicken straight from the fridge to that cold water. And if we're doing it for 60 minutes or less, it could just stay on the counter at room temperature. That cold water, that cold chicken is going to keep things so that it never gets into that dangerous temperature for long enough for bacteria to grow. That would take over an hour at room temperature. And so we're going for 1 hour and we're starting with everything very cold. So it's not going to be in that danger zone. If you are going to go for longer than an hour, then you would want to put the brine with the chicken in it into the fridge. Now, I should have said we're doing 4 boneless, skinless chicken breasts here, but that amount of brine will actually work for more, as many as even 8 of them, depending on the size of the chicken breast and also the container that you have these in, because it will displace the water in a different way. Like if you put this in a big, wide storage container, then the water is not going to go up very deep and it might not make it over the chicken breast. But if you have it in a more narrow pot, then it will probably displace over the chicken. If you don't have enough of the water salt mixture to fully submerge the chicken, just make more of it. It's not difficult to make. Like I said, 4 cups water, 4.5 tablespoons of Morton's kosher salt. So you can make another 2 cups of it with 2.25 tablespoons of Morton's kosher salt, right? Okay, those are in there for the 30 to 60 minutes. And then you're going to take them out and just pat them dry. You don't have to rinse them or anything. I will say if you are doing the brining step, you don't want to add any more salt to this chicken. So the recipe as written, the seasonings we're going to use do not contain salt. And if you are going to do any kind of seasoning blend that you're buying and adding, you want to make sure that it isn't one that contains salt. So pat your chicken dry, and then in a small mixing bowl, you're combining 2 teaspoons of brown sugar, a teaspoon of paprika, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half teaspoon of black pepper, and mix that up and then sprinkle that all over both sides of the chicken. Now, if you did not brine the chicken, you would also add a teaspoon of kosher salt to your seasoning blend before sprinkling it on the chicken. Okay, let those rest over there with the seasoning on them while you get the grill ready. Like I said, we are doing 2 temperatures. You're going to have one side of your grill at medium heat and the other one at a lower heat. And that way we're not going to dry out the chicken too much. So medium heat is 350 to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and low is 300 to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. But I will say that even if your grill has a thermometer to tell you the temperature of the grill, since we have two different temperatures in there, it's hard to know if you've got it right. So you have to do the Mississippi test, or sometimes I call it the motorboat test. This is where we put our hands 5 inches above the grates of the grill. So you get it heated to where you think you want it. You know, you have your dial at kind of like medium because we're aiming for medium heat. And then you put your hands 5 inches above the grates there and you want to count for 5 to 6 seconds. That's 5 to 6 seconds for medium heat. So you're going 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. And if you can keep your hands there for those full 5 seconds before they get too uncomfortable, before it gets too hot, then you know you've got a medium temperature. If you can leave them for longer, it's probably too low. And if you need to take them off too quickly, like in 2 to 3 seconds, well, then that's high heat. So one half of your grill is at medium, which is the 5 to 6 seconds. And the other half of your grill is at low, which is going to be a good 10 to 12 seconds with your hands over that heat before they get uncomfortable. Now, I tend to oil my chicken breast just a little bit at this point so that they don't stick. Not everybody does that. Some people oil their grill, some people oil the chicken. So however you want to do it, do that. And then the chicken is going top side down on the side of your grill that is set to medium heat. So the hotter of the two sides. And what I mean by top side, I mean the side that faces the top when they're like in their little styrofoam container, the more rounded side. We're putting that down first because it's going to get the best grill marks. And then that's going to be our serving side that's going to be facing up when we serve these. But if you don't care about that, it doesn't matter really which side you start with them down on. Okay, so you have them down on the grill and you are leaving them for 6 minutes. You can close the grill or not. It doesn't really make a difference. Then you're going to brush the side that's facing up with some barbecue sauce. And then you're going to turn the chicken over as you flip it or move it to the low heat side of the grill. So it's been on this medium side of the grill. Now you have barbecue sauce on the top and that's flipping so that the barbecue sauce side is down and that grill mark side is up. And now we are on the lower heat side of the grill. Now, brush the tops with some barbecue sauce as well. And you're going to continue to cook on the low side until the sauce is caramelized and the internal temperature of the chicken is 160 degrees Fahrenheit. If you cut into one, it's not pink inside anymore. That's about 6 minutes. If it's not done, put a little bit more barbecue sauce on there because they're going to be starting to dry out a little bit and cook for a little bit longer. Then remove them from the grill, transfer them to a clean plate, and let them rest for at least 5 minutes. The goal is to have the temperature rise up to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's a good idea to double check that with a thermometer and just make sure that you've reached that temperature. And that there is how you get juicy, delicious chicken breasts on the grill. You start with a brine, a great seasoning, and then you don't have them over high heat, they're over medium, and then low to finish with a barbecue sauce at the end, adding some moisture. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.